Well, hello. I don't have an opening slide. My name is Mike McCarthy. And I give this for a sense of perspective. I think you may be familiar with this location. But there are some challenges that we're facing. The first is population growth. And it's just not the population growth. It's also the fact that these people are beginning to go towards Western civilization. They want our standard of living. And with that comes a demand for oil, comes a demand for minerals, becomes a demand for water. As we look around the globe, there's striking water scarcity issues, as Jared went over this morning, in China, in Africa, in Asia. And on top of that, with all these people, there's plenty of opportunity to sell things to people, so we've got increased industrialization. The increased industrialization is impacting upon our ecosystems, and add to all that the issues associated with climate change. And here we have sea level rise. This is at Venice, but also in Miami, Florida, on a regular basis now. At high tide, people are driving through flooded streets filled with seawater. In response, organizations have begun to address eco-efficiencies, energy efficiencies, water efficiencies, waste minimization. They've also begun to look at greenhouse gases, how they can reduce those, and how they can improve the productivity of their organizations. One of the first places that an organization starts when they get on the path of sustainability will be in energy efficiency. Great place to start. Falls underneath the category of eco-efficiency. You can get savings of as much as 26% through relamping processes, through commissioning, through improving the performance of your HVAC systems. Others begin to migrate into high-performance buildings. This is the Propellants North building at NASA Kennedy Space Center. It's a great place to work. These solar panels are not only providing renewable energies for this building, but they're also powering some of the electric car vehicle fleet at the center. Now, the benefits associated with high-performance buildings don't just end with energy efficiencies. Let me do the math for you. The average office building in the U.S. is about 60,000 square feet. The average energy bill is $1.65 a square foot. That's energy. Now, if you take a look at the salaries and benefits for the individuals working at those locations, it's $200 a square foot. So if I'm able to reduce that energy consumption by 25%, let's say, I get 41 cents a square foot times 60,000. I get about 25 grand in savings. The U.S. Green Building Council says that you can increase productivity of your workforce through improved air quality. People aren't breathing a lot of CO2. They like oxygen. People really like oxygen. So you've got that. They can look outside. They can see the clouds. It improves their productivity by as much as 18%. But let's just take half of it. That's $18 a square foot times 60,000. That's $1 million. So the benefits to sustainability, if you stop at eco-efficiencies, you're ripping yourself off. So there's a direct correlation between sustainable organizations and organizations that do quite well. And where does that come from? It comes from a variety of areas. You've got the higher productivity, you've got reduced material inputs, improved supply chains, increased capacity to manage change. You're outperforming competitors. Goldman Sachs did some research, and they found that the shares of sustainable firms were 25% higher than those that were not sustainable. There was an 11-year Harvard study that looked at the sales of sustainable firms versus non-sustainable. 4 times higher. And their employee growth, 8 times higher. Those benefits are great. So I started looking at, well, how many people are truly sustainable? Well, let's take a look. So I looked at the federal government, because I work in that space, and 25% of federal managers were of the opinion that their organizations were sustainable. I'll look at Fortune 500, it's got to be better there. 20% of Fortune 500 firms are viewed as being truly sustainable. All right, that's US. I'll look overseas. So I look at the United Kingdom, and I found a survey on facility managers, 20%. This is for Jeff Rosen. This is the Pareto efficiency, isn't it? 20% of the organizations are moving towards sustainability. Well, why is that? So I looked a little deeper, and I looked at the barriers. I looked at the barriers in the federal government, and I thought, well, I'll look at the facility managers over in the UK. They're very similar. You start going down this list, and you begin to see, okay, I got financial constraints, I've got an antiquated system over here, and if I had the money, it wouldn't be antiquated anymore. I don't have senior management support, nobody's a clear leader, I don't have knowledge at the front lines, I don't have awareness, I've got time constraints. These are all very similar. So what it said to me was that there's more to this than just management. It's almost as if this is just our human nature that's coming into play here, that's preventing us from becoming sustainable. So I found these guys, Harrison Crane, and they had done some research to the depth, degree, and diffusion of sustainability in an organization. By depth, they refer to how deeply an organization values sustainability. By degree, how sustainability is expressed in the projects that they implement. And by diffusion, is it just in a couple pockets, or is it throughout the entire organization? What affects the depth is the individual resistance to change, as well as symbolic events, Earth Day events, balloons, free drinks, where people are getting behind the idea of sustainability. And then business philosophy. Does the business believe that sustainable initiatives will advance them forward? And then there's the macro culture. For example, NASA is embedded in the federal government, which puts a high value on sustainability. They're a lot different than the US coal industry. So NASA, by its nature, being in a culture that says, yeah, it's okay to be sustainable, is going to be sustainable. But if you're operating a coal mine in western Kentucky, it's unlikely you're going to move in that direction. Then there's performance beliefs. And that tends to deal with the idea that if we take on sustainable measures, it's going to take us away from being profitable. So we don't want to move in that direction. And then diffusion. The organizational barriers have to do with whether there's an impetus there. If you're going to go ahead and recommend a sustainable project, is it going to be accepted? Or do you not want to offer up a sustainable project because it might be an interference for your career? And then cultural fragmentation. That has to do with the siloing effect that you see in organizations, either because of geography or functional areas. And then finally back to resistance to change. So with all these, you got to start thinking about, well, how do I get over these barriers? And it's very interesting. There's research that's been done by this fellow Goss into living organizations. It looks at, he started looking at Shell and why Shell had been around so long. They started out in the 1880s, and they're still with us today. They decided, well, let's look around and find other organizations like us who've been around and are top in their field. And what they found was only 27. Whoa. They looked a little further and found that Fortune 500 companies only last about 40 or 50 years on average. Boom, then they're dead. What was it about the organizations that lasted? And the themes in DeGoss's work begin to replicate in this area too. So how do you get over these barriers? How do you move in a direction of a sustainable organization? Seidel and others. Seidel is with SAP Business Systems, and 2 universities came up with these 4 criteria: a strategic vision, organizational support, motivation, and measurement and continual improvement. The strategic vision gives your organization an idea of where they're going, and it provides them with a way to sign on board to that vision. The organizational support is about a top-down, bottom-up structure. Just like a tree, you've got sun and you've got water. But you really need those roots. You really need to reach out and find out what's going on in the periphery so that you can make your adjustments and respond. And then there's motivation. The benefit of reaching out and finding out what's going on in those outer spaces is the idea that you're responding, you're finding out what's happening, but more so, you're invigorating your people to be aware that there's opportunities and I'm part of this organization. I can move this organization on. So that's the silver bullet of this whole system, is intrinsic motivation. And then there's external motivation too, and that has to deal with incentives or celebrating successes. And then finally, measurement and adjusting to the information that you find. To be able to go ahead and see how you're performing and how you can improve the overall operation of your organization. So it just doesn't happen. You have to have a process, a step-by-step process for this. So this is a process that we collaborated with NASA's Kennedy Space Center. And I was shocked after doing all my research that we incorporated all these items in. How cool is that? So, as it turns out, we had a sustainability coordinator who put together a business case, which was approved by the senior management team. She then put together a sustainability team of 4 to 5 fire souls within the organization, and they went ahead and they recruited functional teams. Functional teams had a leader, and they represented human resources, contracting, engineering, environmental, all these different facets of Kennedy Space Center, communications. And then they found people within their organizations, 5 or 10 people, that could help them on this next step. And the team with the coordinator put together the vision, reviewed that with senior management, that provided them with the direction, provided them with the view, and they then have a sustainable vision. After that, they've got to get everybody on the same page. So they did that through a workshop. And I'll show that in a little more detail. But the workshop provided them with an understanding of where they were going. They made sure everybody understood what the process forward would be. This functional team then went through and analyzed each operation that they had relative to 8 particular sustainability goals, and then began to bubble up projects. At the end of the process, we had a bottom-up, top-down plan that was developed by the functional units, driven by the sustainability team, reviewed by senior management, and then finally approved. And then these are the workshop elements. It was awareness, introduction to tools, process flow mapping, inputs, outputs, products, wastes, byproducts that were in the system, all the way through to backcasting. And the backcasting was interesting because they decided they wanted to be net zero, waste, energy, water. So we took the projects for the Space Center and we just changed our trajectories slightly. So that in 20 years, it'll be rainwater harvesting. Most of the food will be produced on the center. The center will be just like the space station in that all the energy will be coming from the center itself. So this is the end product. And what it is there's from 18 different functional units, and there's 200 unique sustainability projects that are described in these 52 pages. And this is their guide going forward. It's simple, it's concise, and they've got the measurement and monitoring of their performance going forward. Like any adaptable organization, they're wondering where they go from here. So there's a new launch vehicle. They're getting ready for that launch vehicle, and they're improving their systems as they go. They already have the largest alternative fuel vehicle fleet in the federal government. So they're moving forward. So, my 15 minutes are up.